Good afternoon. Welcome back to the B&H event space. You are tuned into Apple Photos' bold new iPhone layout. Today, we are organizing made to order with the photo managers, Paul Einarsen, back to join us. Paul, I got 106,000 photos in my camera roll today. So I'm your number one listener today. I'm going to be hanging on every word.
Well, glad to know. Yeah, it's you're not alone out there. We've gone way past the 10,000s and into the 100,000s, and everybody keeps adding. So it's a one of those things.
It's one of those
Uh,
things. The more memory
yes,
they give us, the more we'll use.
yes, change is constant. So anyway,
Definitely.
well, great. Well, I'm thrilled to be back here. You guys are great, and I love B&H. I've been in and out many times, so hopefully this will give you some extra stuff to talk about.
Awesome. Well, we're looking forward to it, and I'll let you do your thing, Paul. Remind everybody that if you do have any questions, drop it into the YouTube chat. Paul, I'll see you at the end for some Q&A.
Okay, super. Let me get things up here. All right. So let's go. Sorry. Okay, now we're set. So thanks everybody for showing up today. I'm really excited about this. This has been a constant source of inquiry from clients and friends and other people in the photo managers since Apple did this rebuild, kind of a remodel. I think is a great way to think about it, uh, based on the new iOS and Mac OS last almost October, late September, early October. Um, so just so you're clear, what we're talking about here is Apple Photos on iOS or iPadOS 18.1 and later. I think we're now up to 18.2, so they're creeping up here. But the big changeover happened at about the 0.1 stage. And of course, Mac OS Sequoia, which we'll be talking about all three devices in this, but I will tell you up front the big changes and the ones that people have talked about the most are the is on the iPhone, and I think we'll go into the reasons for that, but I think it's actually a really cool change once you get your head around what they're doing and what your options are, which is what we're going to do today. So hang on and let's go through the process. I do want to just say up front for anybody who doesn't know me, just so you know, I know what I'm talking about. Um, I've been an Apple enthusiast and trainer for about 20 years, really since it came out as iPhoto. I followed along every step of the way, and uh, I found a number of things that because photos and the iPhone is so um, ubiquitous, I guess is the big word, uh, it touches everybody. And what I found that's so different from way back in the day when I started shooting film and worked as a photojournalist, um, people are exposed literally to photos through Apple Photos who've never really taken pictures before, which is fascinating for me. So back in the day, you would have photographers who were, by definition, something of an enthusiast about their photography. And the use of it was more creative or photojournalistic or that sort of thing. Um, with the iPhone, we see photo challenges and photo uses in a variety of spheres. I mean, virtually everything. So for me, I find I'm working a lot with people who are just trying to make it work. They're trying to understand it, and a lot of people get excited about it and move on to a camera or are trying to do more things. So the talk today is going to go into some aspects of this, and we're going to hit some high points here. Um, as far as history goes, iPhoto started in 2001, and really from 2001, when it started, all the way through most of last year, there really weren't huge changes in how you got around in Apple Photos. By and large, it was a user-friendly experience. You certainly had to know a few tricks, but compared to most of what has been out there, it didn't take a lot to understand how to make things work on a basic level. And I think it's fair to say that Apple has, in many ways, set the standard over the years for what photo management should look like. My opinion, but I think it's true. I think if you look at things, at the other software that's available and the way that the photo management has and photo organizing has evolved. For sure, Apple Photos is the most used photo management app in the world. We're supposedly in 2025, we expect to have over 2 trillion photos uploaded to the internet. And most of those statistically are going to be from an iPhone, which means that they're using Apple Photos in some form or other along the way to make that happen. So it's something that we all connect with, and if we are not a iPhone user or Apple Photos user, we almost certainly know friends and family who are. And hopefully some of these things will help you if you're the teacher, facilitator in your family or your group, to help people, with their photos. So again, we're talking about macOS Sequoia, iOS, and iPadOS 18.1 or later. What is different, what's changed is in the past, if you learned Apple Photos on your phone, it translated very directly to your iPad or your Mac. And as a trainer, this was really helpful because you don't have to train someone 3 times on essentially the same platform for them to feel comfortable doing what they're doing. What has changed and what's really significant about this particular update is that Apple has changed that. And you're going to see that some of the features are more platform or device specific. It works a little bit differently on the iPhone than it does on the iPad, than it does on the Mac. And so it's, I guess you could say it's grown up in a way. And we have to at least understand what that means as we're using this. So there are device-specific features. This is driven a lot by the technology behind it. So Apple Silicon, if you're familiar with the term, is Apple's own chip, and it has features built into the chips that enable a lot of the things we're going to talk about today, including the what they're calling Apple Intelligence, which is kind of a combination of artificial intelligence, Apple's own machine learning, and so forth. So this is what we're dealing with. It really is more of a sea change than what we've seen in the past. And so let's take a look at that. What we're going to talk about today, we're going to spend about 45 minutes going through this, and then there will be time for Q&A at the end. But as Derek said, please put questions in the chat, and we will do our best to answer your questions and clarify things at the end. The I've divided this into like three areas. The navigation, basically where you find the different parts of your photo library. Um, the search function, or literally the finding your photos part of it, the part that historically has been just long swipes until we stumbled onto the photos we want. This is a huge part of what Apple has done here, and I think the emphasis has been, as we get larger and larger photo libraries into the hundreds of thousands and more, scrolling to find stuff is just not that practical anymore. And on top of that, when you think about it, we used to really rely on folders of by year and this sort of thing. Well, if you're trying to remember when something happened over like a 10-year span, that's one thing. If you're trying to remember where something happened over a lifetime, it's a whole different deal. And I believe what we're seeing here is sort of the beginning of how uh, Apple at least sees how to get past that. So we got the navigation, we got the search, and because this is a really photo enthusiast community, uh, which I love being a part of. I'm going to touch a little bit on some editing things that have come out. It's related to the rest of it, but there's a couple of sweet things there that I want to show you. So that's where we're going today. And first, we'll go to navigation. Now, my experience and my experience with clients with navigation has been that navigation has been a fairly decision heavy task. In other words, you have to start by knowing where to go. Do I go to all photos? Do I go to the albums tab? Do I go, do I start with a search? And I think this is essentially what has happened. Um, and by the way, if you have a phone running 18.1 or later, by all means follow along with this, and I think you'll see where I'm going. I was actually building this presentation at the library, our local library, when I did this, and I thought, wow, a library is the perfect metaphor for what we're dealing with. And in essence, what we used to have so much of was a multi-level experience. We started out at the top, then we went to a link that got us to the next level, and then within that level, we sort of drilled down as we went. And I think historically that's been the thinking when you're coming from a folder, nested folder kind of metaphor, right? What this promises is essentially a flatter experience. And the best analogy I can make, other than the library, is if you think back, even 5 years ago, a lot of websites were very link heavy. You would go through levels and levels to get to the place you wanted to get to, and then you had to get yourself back out. Today, many very successful websites are essentially very flat. You get to a landing page, you scroll down until you find the thing you're looking for, and you're there. And this is essentially what Apple has done. And again, it shows up mostly on the iPhone because there's a limitation on the real estate that they have to work with. I think this is kind of what's happened. So if you look here, this is an example of the old home screen. This would be your camera roll, your all photos view. And if you want to go anyplace else, you then have to decide, do I go to the For You button? Do I go to albums? And within those, do you dig down deeper to get to videos or something else, right? So, and the all photos view basically had everything in it. So it was the grab bag. This is what we see now when we go into the new home screen. What it does is it drops us into the bottom of our all photos view, uh, but it actually is at a transition. So this is kind of a dividing line here between what we used to call our camera roll and what we're now calling collections. Collections is kind of the new theme for what they're doing, and we'll add a little detail about that. The result, in my experience, is that there's fewer steps to get where you want to go. There's less scrolling to get to a photo. And in fact, these collections act as kind of like the widgets on your home screen or widgets that Apple uses elsewhere. They're really kind of shortcuts. They're shortcuts, or they're um, like well, widgets, I guess, is the best way to put it. So in the old view, if we were looking for photos, we would start by simply scrolling until we got to what we want. If we were lucky enough to know a date, we might put in a date and go straight to that. We might hit years first and go to go through months. However it is that you get there, this is kind of the old view. In the new view, we basically just start by going down. If we're searching, we start by scrolling down to a shortcut to whatever it is that we want to get to. And because there are fewer layers to it, I like this better. There also are a couple of tricks, which we're going to see in a sec, that make it even cooler. But fundamentally, that's the difference that I see. It's a flatter experience. You're scrolling, yes, but you're not scrolling through thousands of photos. You're scrolling through half a dozen or a dozen shortcuts. This is what it looks like on the different devices. Just to give you a quick overview. So the good news for those of us who spend a lot of time on the Mac is that the Mac view has really not changed a lot. We'll check that in a sec. This is what this whole palette of shortcuts and collections would look like if you just logged on to your iPad, and this is what it would look like if you extended it out to look at what you've got on your phone. We'll start with the phone just to drill down a little bit of detail. So in this case, again, at the top here, the top 2/3 are your all photos. The bottom are your collections. And you can see here, if you spread this out, I basically took several screenshots and just pasted them together so we could see, what is there. You just have this whole series of collections that show up in different ways, which we're going to talk about in just a second. On the iPad, we have the advantage that there's more width. So it sort of squeezes up. We can have some of these sections side by side. So this setup actually works really nicely on the iPad. And one thing that doesn't show here is at the top on the iPad, you actually have the option of opening up the sidebar that we're familiar with on the Mac. So you kind of have one foot in both camps. You can go, whichever way you choose. But this is the iPad look, and then this is the Mac look, which again follows pretty much the same thing that we did before. You'll notice in in the prior version, we had a days category up here. Now it is reduced to years, months, and all photos. And days has moved down to the sidebar here and as its own collection on mobile, which we'll go into again in a second. So if we dissect this this opening page, this landing page, for lack of a better word, this is where things have settled out. So search lives up here toward the top, and it shows up usually in the same position in many of the different views. So you can look for that up here. The select button we're familiar with from using Apple Photos on the iPhone before. Preferences, we now have access to a lot of the preferences up here that were scattered around different places in the prior version. We'll take a look at that next. The camera roll, the all view is here, and then these collections again live at the bottom. Now, if we go into these preferences, so again, we're talking up here. This is your little avatar, whatever it is. If we go into preferences, what we get is a lot of the information that we kind of look for at odd times. Okay, it tells us how many photos are here, the shared with you and iCloud links, some of these kind of random things that used to be in one of the lower tabs before are up here. Controls for various other content and what you want to see. So this is where you go for preferences. When we now go down to collections, so we're going to start to look at this. These are just 3 random sections from this, but you can see it in a little more detail. So by default, when you set up your phone the first time, underneath photos, you'll see this recent days, which is what's happened with days. It's actually given them their own little shortcuts. In this case, albums is below that, people and pets, pinned collections, and so forth. There are a few of these sections at the bottom that still are basically just text information here, links basically to these different things. How they decided that, I don't know, but it seems to work out fine. And particularly utilities have some cool things here. Duplicates. This is this is a test thing. Don't judge me. So anyway, that is the collection part. So hopefully you sort of get the idea. Photos, the old standby photo collection at the top, then the navigation in various forms just spread out underneath it, so that you can find where you want to go. Now, how do we now that we know kind of where to go, where things are, how do we actually find the different photos, actual photos or collections of photos that we're looking for? And this is where things get really cool. I'm going to, for the sake of time here, I'm just going to cherry pick some of the features that I think are especially noteworthy, stuff that you should definitely try. But I want you to know that this is a version of the app that deserves playing with to understand the nuances. And also, so far with each mini update from 18.1 to 18.2 and so forth, there are other little improvements and changes that get thrown in. So please be aware of that and browse accordingly. One thing I really want to point out is the people and pets, and for a couple of reasons. First of all, I think that people don't invest as much time as they realize they should in setting up people and pets. This is one of the parts of the Apple Photos process where there's a lot of background processing. In other words, you'll go and you'll choose some people, and then it'll go, oh wow, that's really this person. And then in the background, when you're not doing anything else, it'll go looking for that person with a beard or whatever the variations are that are going into that. So people and pets is something that I recommend you go back to at least every couple of weeks for a while until you get to a point where you're just not getting any new hits on additional faces and so forth. It really does benefit. And then when you get to your searching, of course, it's just that much easier. It's like, I want to see pictures of Pam at the beach or at a restaurant or whatever, and bam, there you are. What is also significant, I found, is when I started testing it, it seemed to me that it was doing a much better job than it used to. And I thought, well, okay, it's I'm working on a newer machine and so forth, but I really had no idea. So what you're seeing here is an example of what I found, and I believe is probably the case. I had an old 2015 MacBook Pro running Ventura, and when I did a people search, did the people tagging for Pam, it came up with a summary view. I'll explain summaries in a few minutes, but it came up with a summary view of 43 images, and all the images of her that it found were 665. Now, understand this is the same photo library that I'm sharing across iCloud. And in this case, I'm viewing it on one of my old MacBook Pros, and in this case, in a newer Mac Mini. On the Mac Mini, that very same search brought up 1,644 images of Pam in the summary view, and 3,700 in the all view, which is like a staggering difference. Now, where that difference is, whether it's old technology versus new technology, well, it is almost, but whether it's just old hardware versus new hardware, whether it's old software versus new software, I don't know. All I know is that when I've tested this on pretty much anything, it comes up dramatically better with the new software. So if you're one of those people who does people, or you're working with somebody who does, and you haven't run people tagging for a while, this is a great thing to do. Because what I think is happening is Apple Intelligence is now kicking in. And so I think this is where part of these numbers come from. Some of these numbers, I believe, are simply because I have tons of screenshots that I use for my training. And within those screenshots, as they are here, I have pictures of my family and other pets and other things. And I think some of these represent simply screenshots or very, very small images of people and pets that never registered on this machine. I believe that's part of it. But the other part of it is this. So here's Pam trying on a new sweater that she really wanted to buy, but wanted to see what it looked like before she bought it. So this tag is what I would expect, right? It shows it identified her right away, and everything is good. But here was the surprise. Not only did it tag her the front side, it tagged the back side as well. And what appears to be happening is that the Apple Intelligence figured out this is the same. This is the same person taken, two pictures that are close together, same colors, same characteristics and stuff, and it tagged the backside as the same thing. So this is, raises it to a whole different level, in my opinion. Here's another one that threw me. So this is one of our cats, Dash, and you can't even see his face. And this photo is like dozens of photos away from the next picture of Dash. But he was just peeking. He was trying to find something of interest under this bench. You can't see anything except the fact that he's a cat, and somehow it made that connection and it identified him correctly. So that's a long way of saying that I am really impressed with how the recognition works, and I encourage people to play with it. I think this is the kind of thing when people talk about how artificial intelligence is going to improve photo organizing. I think this is the kind of thing that is going to make that difference. So we'll see. Now, another cool thing about people and pets is that we now can do groups. And so, and it doesn't have to be two people or two pets. It can be a person with a pet, like I did here. This is very easy to do. If you go into the people and pets, you'll see that groups now is a category, and you just hit create. You tell it which people, pets, or combinations you want to see, and it will look for those as well. I have one client who thought, she has 3 kids. She wanted to create a group of just her 3 kids so she could see them all together at the same time. And, here we go. So moving on, trips. Trips is new. And trips is, I look at it as kind of a work in progress. Not all of these groupings are perfect. For instance, this New York and Virginia trip that it tagged actually were 2 different trips. But because I didn't take any photos between the 2, it basically concluded that I was away from home for both. It didn't know that I'd gone home in between. And so it just grouped them as one. But no matter how you cut it, this is a great way to speed up your photo organizing or eliminate a task that took you time before. So give trips a try if you're someone who travels a lot. Now, folders and albums, these are the staples of photo organizing and photo management. And one of the issues I've always had with folders and albums on the on mobile is that they're hard to work with. In fact, you couldn't make a folder and put albums inside it for a long time. Well, now you can. You can do pretty much anything except smart albums on mobile, which I think is a huge benefit. And I like this whole layout. I think the fact that you've got these little thumbnails, I think is a great way to help you find the stuff you're looking for. Days we talked about before. You will see it show up some places as recent days and some places just days, because the truth of the matter is it is trying to group every single day that you took pictures. So you could follow this days all the way back to 10 years ago. You could pre-COVID, the whole thing. So this is it's worth making the point here that what all of this stuff are really just automated searches. In this case, these are in effect smart albums that Apple Photos created on its own, looking for photos on August 3rd. And these are the ones that it produced. So again, more helpful features. A couple other kind of random things in utilities now. There's several additional features. If you are an artist or you have kids who, do art for school or whatever, yeah, you can actually, there's actually an illustration um, tab now that will look for all of the drawings that are on your in your library. Same thing with handwriting. Imported, you can go find the stuff that you imported. QR codes, if you're someone who does a lot of QR codes, uses them for stuff, you don't have to have them clutter up your all photos library. You can just go to utilities, go into QR codes, and it will show you the ones that you've taken pictures of. Also makes it easier just to clear out when you're done with them. Here are just some other examples of how that utilities folder looks. This is on the iPad. It'll look for handwriting, QR codes, recently saved, recently viewed. I'm a big fan of recently viewed because I think that uh, when I am with family or friends, inevitably we get into the thing about, oh, you got to see this picture of, my grandkid or this bird that I took a picture of when I was on vacation. It was so awesome, right? And you start doing that, and you start doing that with everybody that you you meet. And why not just go straight to recently viewed? You don't have to search on birds. You don't have to scroll through your all photos. Just say, oh, shoot, I know I looked at that yesterday. Let's just go there and find it. And I think that's just an example of how this whole new navigation should help us and eliminate some of the hard organizing steps that we used to have to take. Another cool thing, I work with people who are really insistent on having everything in an album, and they want to know, where it is and where it isn't, what is there. They're now when you push up on a photo to see the information or go to the information tab, it now shows you what albums a photo exists in, and and if you tap on that, then you get the actual list of which ones it's in. So you can go there. If you want to remove it, you can go there. If you want to uh, edit it, change it, do whatever. It makes it much easier to get at things that we've wanted to do. GPS information. Now, locations offer GPS, and you can copy it and paste it. So if you're shooting stuff with a big camera and it doesn't have a GPS tagging on it, you could just take a couple of shots with your iPhone. When you get back and you're doing your editing, you could copy the coordinates, paste them into the EXIF or the EXIF TPC field, whichever it is, on your big camera shots, and now you have those combined as well. Okay, we're getting close to the end here. I know that's a lot of stuff, and to look at it the way that we're looking at it here can get a little crazy. So I hope you've had a chance to kind of play with it on your own phone, if you can, and if not, go to Apple, or when you get around to it, take a look and don't get put off by this new system out of the gate. I think it's going to turn out to be a real help for everybody. Now, the beauty of this is that it's it's customizable. So the title of this is made to order, and this is where we get to make it to order. So if you recall, we have all of the different all these different collections, and this is the default order that they fall in when they go into your iPhone. There's a lot of stuff here. For instance, wallpaper suggestions. Personally, I could care less about those. So what you can do when you scroll all the way to the bottom of the page, you'll see a choice to customize and reorder. And when you tap that, this is what you get. So you can uncheck an item to remove it from the view altogether. You can grab on the little handles here and move it up and down to prioritize which ones you want to have at the top and which ones are less important. It's a great system. On top of that, you may recall that there is one collection called pinned collections. And the pinned collections is basically a collection of collections. So the way that it comes by default is it includes recently saved, map, videos, screenshots, favorites, and albums. But I don't care about a lot of these. I don't really care about the recently saved. I don't care about having screenshots handy or favorites handy. But what I do want are some of these other things. So I basically got rid of the ones. I hit the minus sign, got rid of the ones I didn't want. I added in ones that I do want, and now this group, which is here, now represents collections that I go to a lot. And I can change this, daily if I want to, with different things. And so this takes us one step even further down the road of, instead of going to look for stuff, we can choose the stuff that we want to see right at our fingertips, literally, and put it in pinned collections. And we could sort the whole pinned collections grouping right at the top, right underneath our all photos, if we wanted to. So you can really have a made to order interface that gives you the photos, gives you the easiest access to the photos that you use the most. And I think this is cool. I don't know any other. This is something we've been used to with professional apps for a long time. Photoshop, Capture One. We can Lightroom. We can move stuff around. Depending on the project we're doing. But this is the first time that I've seen it in a readily accessible application for the end user. So, rah, good job, Apple. Okay, a couple of things quickly, just to give you a heads up on. As you're going through this, make sure that if you're not seeing what you expect to, you may want to go down to the little double arrows down here, which opens up a whole bunch of sort categories. You can sort by, usually we sort by date captured. Some people like to see it by the most recently added, and sometimes those get flipped. So if you're seeing stuff in the wrong order or whatever, you have some control here. You can also go into filter and decide whether or not to you want to see screenshots as part of your group, several other things. So go in and take a look at this, and you can see what you want to do. Next, the other thing you should know is that there are several views, like in photos, in search, things of, I think, albums as well. When you're looking down here at the bottom, if you're not seeing all the photos that you expect to see, make sure you pay attention to this little icon at the bottom. If it has this grid, it means that you're seeing all the photos that relate to whatever it is you're doing, whether it's a search return or an album or whatever. If you're seeing this little guy up here, which looks like a three-legged creature, that's the summary view. And the summary view is Apple's attempt to curate this collection, whatever it is, and make it palatable, easy to view, the kind of thing that you might share, around the table, or people don't want to look at all 300 images. So you may be in summary view and you think you're in all view or vice versa. Just be aware of that. Okay. Last thing I'm just going to touch on again, because you guys are photo enthusiasts, and all the time I get this question from people who've gotten excited about their photos. They're starting to have fun with them, and they go, "What should I use to edit my photos?" And I say, use Apple Photos. A lot of people just don't realize that Apple Photos editing has become really, really good. And there are still plenty of awesome reasons to go to other applications. But for most of what most people do, some color shifts, some contrast, things like that. It's amazing the stuff that you can do now in Apple Photos. So I point this out as saying, before you invest your time and money in learning something totally new, start with this. And you'll get, number one, it's a great training ground. Everything that you do in the editing view is recoverable. It's non-destructive. You can always go back to the original. So that's huge. It's like having training wheels, right? But beyond that, you can make some cool changes, and you can then say, these 4 pictures are fine, but these 2 pictures I really want to put into Photoshop and do some bigger things with them. So take a look at the editing features. This is the kinds of things we have when you go into editing. Adjustments, filters, cropping, cleanup. I'm going to show you in a second, which is new. But as you look at the controls that you have, these are really good controls. And as I said, it's a great place to start and play with. So don't don't poo-poo this part of Apple Photos, because it saves you time. It saves you time, and everything's backed up. Now, the cleanup tool, which you now will see up here, this is one of the options now in editing. The cleanup tool is really good. I mean, it is basically an item removal tool. And you can see here, this is awesome. I thought this worked out really great. And it does a really great job. And this is one more tool that is kind of because of the Apple intelligence and so forth. Another thing are, now we've had filters for a long time, but now on the newer phones, I think it's just the 16s at this point, you now have this whole thing called styles, and styles are like filters on steroids. You can change tone curves, you can change undertone, color bias, things like that. So if you've got it on your phone and it's showing up in your edits, give it a try. All right. So thank you for following along on this. These are really the takeaways that I've got for you. This really is a made-to-order experience. You can go in, again, particularly on the iPhone, you can customize it to your heart's content, which I think people will come to love once they kind of understand it and get used to it. But it is device specific, so it's a little different look and feel depending on which device you're on. And for now, it's not a dramatic change on the Mac, so that may be your best place to start. I don't know. Um, it really makes all of this really makes the point that this is a technology driven thing. And I used to advise people, if if they had an old 2015 Mac or whatever, that you could still use it. Macs have a long life, which is really great. However, the new features that they're coming out with right now are very dependent upon the technology, the chip that's in the machine, and whether or not it can run the software that they're bringing out. So anyway, that's the story. All it's a great all around photo management tool, at least to get out of the gate. And I hope you feel as excited about it as I do. And this is kind of where we started. Derek? Ah.
Yes. But yeah, take a breath, Paul. You hard at work there. Um, we'll,
I
we'll
get
leave this
fired
in.
up.
There you go. Get a drink. We'll leave this information up for a moment while we let some more questions filter in. Make sure you guys screen grab this. If you guys do have any questions, reach out to Paul. Got the free newsletter there. Paul, we're going to get the questions started. And it seems like we have a couple questions related to the Apple ecosystem in terms of what will carry over from Mac to iPhone and that. So we're going to start with a question from our dear friend, Mr. Steve Simon here. Would love to organize on my Mac and then have everything updated on the iPhone and the iPad. I think this is what will happen, but I'm not sure. Is this a good way to organize?
Well, I guess it depends a little bit on what organizing is to the person, but the the sweet spot of the Apple Photos ecosystem is that it is designed to transfer across all devices. And assuming that there's room on the device, and even if the software versions are not totally in sync, I've found it to be really forgiving. I mean, so yeah. I mean, on the face of it, that's exactly what it's supposed to do.
Okay. And
What the one thing I would say is, having said that, be sure that you're using some sort of backup system as well. And Time Machine is in my mind is part of the Apple ecosystem. It's just that extra thing, but it's a good system. It's worked well.
okay, and kind of a little spin-off of that question, a question here by Sergio asking, when you change the settings, will the changes automatically apply to all of your devices?
Changing the settings in terms of what do you think? In terms of like the
So
changing the pinned categories and things like
yeah,
that. I believe not. I think that is a device specific thing.
okay.
Because I mean, it's a great question, and we're new enough into this thing that it's hard to know how that will go. But I think, the Apple thinking, I believe, would be that, because they're starting to treat these as different experiences. You probably want a different experience on your phone than you do on your iPad and you want on your Mac. I could totally see stripping out all the other collections except pinned collections on my phone. But when I go to my iPad, I still want to see, this, and this, um,
Mhm.
just for practical reasons. So that's my guess, but it's easy enough to test if you've got both of them.
Yeah, and it makes sense just knowing how the Apple ecosystem works, where it's like if I go into Bridge and then have Finder opened, I can sort, if I sort by one, the other's going to stay sorted. Or if I pull up two Finder folders and I sort one
Mm,
by last modified and one by file name,
yeah,
those won't have a crossover. So I mean,
yeah,
yeah, it makes sense that the
yeah,
thinking is you want to, this folder I always want to have by file name, and this folder I always want to have sorted by last modified. That's my
yeah,
thinking. But
yeah.
Sergio, if we didn't nail your question there, if you did have another particular question, let us know. Pipe back in. I'm gonna move it to a question by Elizabeth asking if the groupings are Apple generated or can you customize the groupings?
It depends on which groupings you're talking about. So, as it stands, I I actually I have a longer version of this presentation. If
We're not letting
anybody
you go,
could,
Paul. You're here all
yeah.
afternoon.
But there are the way that I look at the different collections. There are the Apple collections that are Apple created, and there are the personal collections that we create. So, for instance, we create all the people and pets uh, collections, right? We create the albums and folders. Those are like all our things. On the other hand, Apple creates the trips. They create so those are kind of wired into the system, at least at this point. I mean, I trips is one in particular that I think could stand to have a little bit of editing value to it, but you have to look at it two different ways. So the answer is some groups are things that we can affect, and others are ones that we're just going to get handed to us to use or not use as we desire.
Okay, we'll throw out the ever present answer. Sometimes maybe
Yeah,
always
that's
works for
right.
everything.
That's right.
We had a lot of people asking about older versions. Paul is obviously not going to be able to tap into every single iOS update and model and this and that and beta versions and all that. So for the people who are using the older software, I'm going to guess, Paul, the blanket answer is depending on the feature, depending how old
Mhm.
your setup is, depending on what operating system you're on, these options, as you explained, sometimes it's just a matter of the chip and the hardware that are in, and
Mhm.
sometimes it is a software thing. So not everything is going to be, there's really no blanket statement we can give other than if you have an old system, you have an old phone, you have an old MacBook, there's going to be some things that are going to jive and some things aren't going to jive. Pretty much fair to say.
Totally. It's, and I think the reason that I put together this talk is that um, this is an unusual threshold. And I think it's fair to say that if you look at photo management in general, a lot of stuff happened and came together in 2024 and is sort of coming into 2025 that is just exponentially different than what happened before that. We had, it's like, oh, this, you could do this thing. If you had two or three new features in Apple Photos and a little bit different look, that used to be a significant change. This is like a whole different thing. And the quote cool stuff is really around Apple Intelligence, which is around the M4 chip. And the software can be written because of that stuff. So I think I'm running into that sort of historical challenge more right now, and I think for this next year than I have in forever. The good news, I think, is that a lot of the people I'm talking to have machines from the, you know, 2012 to 2017 kind of time frame, and they're really getting pretty old, long in the tooth. I mean, they work, but by today's standards, they're not. They're due to be retired. I'm the worst at trying to keep old equipment running. I've got old stuff around because it does work. Um, but this year, I'm feeling different about justifying that than I have in the past. So, it kind of is what it is. But the good news then is this stuff lasts a long time and will probably, when you get into this threshold, then you're probably good for another 5 years, 7 years, whatever. So that's my hope.
Let's hope. Yeah, now it's like five years is an eternity in the technological age we are in. So let's hope.
Oh man, yeah.
It's like you
I
wanted to
mean,
advance, but slow down. Let us catch up.
yeah, it's, but I had a, I, it's, the tough thing is that nobody knows. I mean, we don't really know where Apple, wants to take things. But I was at the Apple store the other day getting my new iPhone, and talking to the specialist about, I'm a photo manager and I help with this, and he goes, oh my god, he goes, my kids are never going to look at photos on a computer, they're going to be looking at them on their Vision Pro, and it's like, oh man. So I just went on a vacation and I've started shooting videos in spatial video and spatial photos. I can't view them yet, but 5 years from now, I probably will. And
Mm.
that'll be pretty special. So anyway, it's an exciting time. And what I like is, I like how much all of this stuff has engaged people in photography who otherwise wouldn't be. I see interest from younger people, older people, and it's crazy.
Yeah.
You guys are in the middle of it.
Oh, right in the mix. Job security, though. That's where
Yeah,
I'm like, yeah, keep changing things because when you're in the
yeah,
education business, people need
yeah.
to be educated. I want to answer a quick question from one of our
Mhm.
viewers asking about the editing tab. iPhone 14 version 18.2. I'm iPhone 14 18.3, but it's all the same. The editing tab is if you look to the right of the information button at the bottom, you're going to see three little sliders. Click on those sliders. So it's between the info, which is the I in the circle, and
Mhm.
it's right to the right of that, to the left of the delete. And that is where you will find the editing
Yes.
tab. And Paul, I'm going to throw one last question to you here. Got some in
Sure.
here. Actually, we're going to do a quick little two-part because we have a question on what are smart albums, and can you sort albums chronologically or alphabetical order? So I guess that's more of a yes or no, and then we'll get to the smart albums. So can you sort albums chronologically or in alphabetical order?
Yes, you can. And
Okay.
that is, if you, when you open it up, when you open an album up, and it's album by album. So when you open an album up, that the little double arrow at the bottom left center, uh, when you go in there, you'll have the option to either sort by names, sort by oldest first, or sort by newest first. And that's where that happens.
Okay. And
Uh,
smart albums.
so smart albums for smart albums are essentially a saved search. It is really all they are. And photo managers have used them for years because it makes it easy to gather stuff. I mean, anything that there are, you can gather them by the camera that was used, by the, when it would, a date range when it was taken, if it isn't like a sort of normal date range and so forth. They have always just been available on the Mac version of Apple Photos, not on the mobile. The story goes just because there wasn't the processing power to really do that. Um, but you now, um, smart albums, I think, are. Uh, they don't have the usefulness that they used to because you can literally go into the search field now and do exactly the same thing that you used to do with smart albums on the Mac. So you can say, I want to see, everything from, June 16th to July 31st or however many days July has. and it will pull those up. In fact, one of the things I didn't show is I've started to play around with spoken searches using Siri to create a collection on your phone, and it's amazingly good. I mean, I can do a search for, show me my 2019 Nantucket vacation, right? And it not only is smart enough to find it and pull it up, but it knows that I started in New Bedford and I left it back in New Bedford. So the ferry ride is there and the whole thing. Um, and so smart albums are, in effect, the days and trips. I mean, those are all really smart albums. It's just that they've been coded by Apple instead of something that we control. But I think as people get smarter and smarter about using Siri to collect things, I think it'll become less and less, you know, uh, important, right?
Mhm.
Um, but it's a handy tool if you do a lot of your organizing, if you're trying to put together a bunch of albums quickly. People use it to say, which photos are not in albums, and you can quickly do a search and come up with all the photos that don't have an album. And if that's important to you, then you got it. um, or all the photos that aren't in an album that were taken in Arizona. I mean, you can get a little crazy. It has multiple criteria like any other search does. So I think, you know, Apple Photos, and I think the reason I've stayed with it is it's one of those things that on the surface is a very kind of plain Jane thing. It has been at least up to now, but you can go really deep with it. And as I said at the end, I a lot of times I get people asking, "Well, what should I edit with? I want to do something cool." And it's like, Apple Photos editing today is better than Photoshop was, 20 years ago. So if that's a measure that matters, I mean,
It's sneaky
everything.
good. It's snuck up. Like we've had to reassess thinking about that because for so long there were much better mobile options. Let's say
Yeah,
there were
yeah,
better options, and now it's gotten to the point where I haven't. I mean, I used to do everything through Snapseed and Lightroom
yeah,
Mobile, and now it's like, well, why
yeah,
do I
yeah,
need extra software? It's good enough now,
yeah.
and I think it's only going to get better. You're going to see stuff like color grading sneak in
Hmm.
there. They're going to add some things and maybe a curves tool and this and that. That would be nice to have in there and get a little more mobility. But you're right. I mean,
Well,
for
yeah.
all it does, it's right there and it's native. So
Well, I just got back from vacation, and it's probably the first vacation um, I've taken in a long time where I didn't take a big camera. And I talked to friends who are like the same way. Um, it's really it's changed the landscape of photography in a lot of ways. But I do think, the challenge that photography faces in general is the number of photos that we take. I mean, this is why, photo management is definitely a keeper as far as work to be done. But it's also, there aren't a lot of things for a lot of people that are as easily an easy creative outlet as photography. And I'm amazed every day at the photos that I see on Instagram and around that people take. Um, it's how we see the world, and it's amazing to see how other people see the world. So anyway,
totally,
I think, yeah, it's a cool thing to be a part of.
definitely. Well, Paul, I want to thank you. If the going by the YouTube chat says anything, everyone loved it. Well received. A lot of
Great.
great questions in there today. A lot of great interaction. People who are glad they tuned into this. And look, it's always a good presentation when you got me over here going through them, like on my phone, trying to follow along. So I'm gonna have to. This is on my rewatch list for sure. But a huge thank you to you and the entire Photo Managers team. You guys have done great things here on the platform for helping get us organized and keeping us up on all the latest technology in that regard. So huge thank you to Paul, the Photo Managers, and of course, all of our viewers out there. We love seeing you guys tuned in and engaged on a daily basis, Monday through Thursday, that is. But huge
Yeah.
thank you to all of you out in the virtual crowd. That is all we have for you today. Another edition of the B&H Event Space in the books. Catch y'all next time.
All right. Take care.
Thanks.